Thus, as the number of cases in New York continue to drop, today Governor Cuomo announced where the new hospitalizations and deaths are originating in minority and low-income neighborhoods across New York City. In the city's low-income communities and communities of color, 27% tested positive for antibodies compared to 19% of the city's general population. So while on its face COVID-19 does not discriminate, the elderly, the poor, and black and brown America are disproportionately suffering. We see that here in this melting pot that is New York City. What we may also be starting to see is COVID's hand in inflaming a vicious cycle of poverty. And that's where we begin tonight with the story of a teenage boy, his single mother, and the school she hoped would change his life.
I guess we're gonna put it in the ground.
Gardening is said to be a teacher of patience. It takes time for flowers to push their way up through the dirt. On this day, it's an exercise in optimism. Tomorrow, the dirt and flowers surrounding Zaire Robinson will be at his mother's gravesite. For anybody who didn't have the chance to meet your mom, how you would describe her?
She was unique. She was nice, and she's very forgiving. She's very respectful. She's very beautiful, and she's also very hardworking.
Essence Robinson's hard work was evident 9 years ago. With Zaire right by her side, she was the first parent to enroll her child here at what is now Ember Charter School. Talk to me about the first day that you start enrolling students. You're at a church, and who's in there?
Yeah, so the very first day, don't know who's going to come. No one had heard of us before. And in walks Zaire and his mom, little Zaire, 5 years old, coming to register for kindergarten. And so we have to give her the same talk. Listen, it's just registration. There's no guarantee that he's going to get in. And she's like, I really want him to go to the school. There are no schools around here with teachers who look like him. She came to the lottery a few months later, and whose name is called first? Zaire's.
Just 1 month before her baby boy's 8th grade graduation, Essence passed away at home. Zaire, just 14 years old, is the one who found her.
I'm really worried about him. You know, I think that when it hits you, it's a shock. And he found my niece. He couldn't wake her up, you know, and it was just the two of them at home at that time.
You know, the COVID-19 crisis has really layered on top just a gargantuan amount of trauma for our students. You know, more than 50 people have died in our community, many of whom have died at home. So they're not even really being counted in those numbers. So for our students already dealing with the violence and the poverty, now they have to deal with great loss in their lives as well.
On the school's website, it says their mission is to ignite, empower, and transform people traditionally labeled at risk. According to the school's founder, Rafiq Kalam-Eddin, the overwhelming majority of the students have or continue to experience several deeply debilitating traumas, and that was before coronavirus.
Everything from sexual abuse and sexual violence, domestic abuse, drug abuse, any of the things that you think are connected with generational poverty, multiple tiers of that happen to our students in their homes. And so when they come to us and they go home to those conditions as well, this is a safe place for them.
This safe space is located in the heart of Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, the borough that just gained the unfortunate distinction of being home to the zip code with the highest COVID-19 death rate in all of New York City. Kings County, Brooklyn has more coronavirus deaths than any county in the entire country.
For over a month was like a ceaseless noise of different ambulances, fire ambulances, police, after the other, one after the other, just continuous.
No place in America has had more people die from COVID-19 than New York City, but the pain has not been shouldered equally. According to the city's health department, while neighborhoods with higher concentrations of Black, Latino, and low-income residents living in housing projects like the Marcy House in Bed-Stuy suffered high death rates, wealthier neighborhoods like Battery Park City in Manhattan saw almost no death. Just as race and income have become strong indicators of who survives and succumbs to coronavirus, race and income are also significant factors in who will thrive academically. Prior to the pandemic, the achievement gap between low-income and other children was already reportedly equivalent to at least 2 years of schooling.
people are really enamored right now that this is such an opportunity in education to move towards distance and blended learning in perpetuity. I think that that is laughable. It ignores the fact that for so many of our kids, our school is the safe place. It's a safe haven. It's where they can come for 9 hours a day and know they're just going to be loved. They're just going to be accepted. I get worked up about this because the idea of not seeing our kids for months and months, I can protect them when they're here. I can guard them. I can look for bruises. I can see whether or not they're sullen today. I can't do that when I'm across the computer from them.
Zaire is fortunate. He's able to continue classes online.
I'm going to get ready to be led by Zaire in our physical exercise routine.
Even leading his PE class in the morning workout.
Put your right arm behind you and push it with your left arm.
Before coronavirus, Ember Charter School was touted as a success. In 2019, the 8th graders here outperformed New York City, New York State, and the district, the latter by more than 260% in reading and 540% in math. Now emptied out, this building and classrooms weren't just where the students came to learn math and science, but to be fed socially, emotionally, and literally to get food.
You know, the vast majority of our students are low income. Over 90% qualify for free or reduced price lunch. Significant portion of our population is also housing insecure, homeless, and in shelters. And so we're not just talking about people who don't have enough money for the bills. They don't have enough to eat. Those are the students that we serve here.
Missed meals, just one small portion of the collateral damage of COVID-19. The tentacles of this virus are not only endangering the well-being of the students, but of the school itself.
We depend on our enrollment. Without our enrollment, we don't have the resources. We don't get philanthropy. You know, I know people think charter schools raise a lot of private money. We don't. You look at black and brown charter schools, we don't get any money. And so for us, really being able to attract and serve our students and our population, that's how we're able to serve everyone. And so if we can't do that, it's going to be really difficult for us to continue to hire social workers, art teachers, counselors, the folks that we need to really pull off our model.
Without the necessary door knocking for the upcoming school year due to the lockdown still in place here, enrollment is down as much as 30%. And Rafiq says that 30% decrease in students could amount to a $4 million decrease in state funding for Ember Charter School.
For each student that we enroll and that stays with us, we get funding from the state. That's our per pupil. Without that, if we can't grow, if we can't have our population continue.
It's currently a K-8 school that had plans to expand through high school this fall. Plans that are now in jeopardy.
So we hope right now our proposal to expand the high schools before the Board of Regents at the State Education Department next month in early June, they'll vote. We hope that they will see that our success is worthy of expanding.
Zaire's mom was counting on it.
Back in January, she spoke at our public hearing about our expansion to high school, which we've been working on now for a few years. And she spoke very passionately about the need for Zaire to really be able to continue his education with us, continue his development into the wonderful young black man that he is. And it really mattered to her that that happened.
Zaire offered this quote to his graduating classmates: "Do what you want, excel in everything, be yourself." How important was education for your mother and making sure that you got the best education possible?
Education was very important for my mother, and she told me that having an education will get you farther in life.
It's been said legacy is about planting seeds in a garden you never get to see.
Yep, let's make it deeper.
But the hope here is that at least one seed takes root and flourishes either because of or despite the environment. And we're joined now by Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York, who represents a district hit hard by COVID-19. Congressman Jeffries, thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
So we're reporting on COVID-19 along racial and economic lines. Bed-Stuy in your district has certainly been particularly devastated, ravaged by COVID-19. Give us a sense of what you've seen as far as how this virus is impacting low-income and minority communities.
Well, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of death all throughout America, but particularly in low-income communities of color for a variety of different reasons. We are overrepresented in the number of frontline essential workers, people who are waking up each and every day, going to work, battling against the COVID-19 pandemic, but as a result, putting themselves, their families, and their neighbors at risk. We also tend to live in denser circumstances here in Brooklyn and throughout other parts of New York City, which increases the likelihood of possible infection. And then, of course, we live in communities that have historically been under-resourced. And as a result of that, you have people who have disproportionately higher rates of pre-existing conditions like diabetes or heart disease or respiratory illness that could create additional complications in connection with the coronavirus.
Yeah, my colleague Juju Chang spoke today with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who said, quote, poverty and inequality in and of itself is a pre-existing condition. So how much of what we're seeing as far as the impact of COVID-19 is due to these systemic disparities? And what can Congress actually do about it right now that might be able to get bipartisan support? I mean, part of what you're talking about is denser living conditions and pre-existing conditions. What impact can Congress have on that?
Well, we need to continue to provide direct intervention in terms of an infusion of resources to the American people, particularly those communities that have been hit the hardest. We need another round of direct stimulus payments to everyday Americans. We have done that in terms of the HEROES Act, which has passed the House of Representatives. We need to bolster and continue to strengthen the unemployment insurance system here in New York State and across the country. We have done that as well in connection with the HEROES Act. We also need to make sure that we support our state and local governments because to the extent there are dramatic budget cuts in New York State, in New York City, in other parts of the country, we know that it will be low-income communities of color who get hit the hardest in terms of public health or public housing or public transportation or public education. So this is an all-hands-on-deck moment. We need the federal government to step up. Mitch McConnell has indicated that he sees no urgency in acting immediately. That is an egregious and outrageous statement. The pain, the suffering, the death demand that we act with the fierce urgency of now.
I want to play something that we heard in your district from someone who lost their niece to COVID-19. Take a listen.
When it's election time, they drive around in their cars saying, come out and vote. I need some cars to drive past and say, come out to this address on these days and get tested. Come out to this location and pick up free mask.
She and others, when we were on the ground in Brooklyn, they talked about how difficult it was to get a test in Bed-Stuy, how many people are afraid to go to the hospitals there. Is enough being done as far as outreach to minority communities to get them the resources that they need, including for young people shut out of schools right now, where many of them actually went to get their daily meals?
Well, more certainly must be done. Thankfully, the New York City Department of Education does continue to provide meals to children throughout the city of New York who otherwise would go hungry. We've worked closely with a great organization called Bed-Stuy Campaign Against Hunger, which has delivered meals and food to thousands of people in Bedford-Stuyvesant and throughout central Brooklyn. We are also working with Governor Cuomo and a variety of different houses of worship in Bedford-Stuyvesant and throughout the city of New York to establish neighborhood-based testing sites. In Bedford-Stuyvesant, where I was at last week, the Bethany Baptist Church is one such testing site, and there are many throughout the city of New York, and we're planning on scaling that up, understanding that not everyone will want to go to a hospital or to a medical clinic. And so we want to bring the testing to the community. That's being done, and we're going to continue to ramp that up as we move forward.
Congressman Jeffries, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.